With the Moderne Recipe Builder, you can create, customize, and test your own recipes using existing recipes as building blocks. The UI offers an intuitive interface that simplifies the process of navigating back and forth from the marketplace, editing, and composing deeply nested recipes. It is an interactive visualizer that helps you understand the structure and relationships of your recipe components. The majority of the view shows a 3D tree viewer with a side panel that shows the recipe list. Here, we can add other recipes or set preconditions. If the Add as a Precondition box is checked, this recipe will be added as a precondition instead of as a recipe. A precondition is a recipe or set of recipes that runs on each file in your repository to determine whether to run the rest of the recipes on that file. If a preconditioned recipe would have made changes or found results, those results are discarded and the rest of the recipes are run. If the precondition would not have made changes nor found search results on that file, the rest of the recipes are not run on that file. Let's walk through a couple of examples. First, an everyday use case for development teams is to customize the common static analysis recipe. This recipe fixes a number of common issues found by source code scanning tools. Let's get started by creating a new recipe, calling this common static analysis. Save. And now let's add the common static analysis recipe to the builder. Now, let's look through this list. This recipe, Fix Missing Braces, adds braces to single-line if statements. Controversial. Some development teams prefer single-line if statements not to have braces. To accomplish this, let's now remove Fix Missing Braces from this list. We can do this either from the 3D recipe visualizer or the tree view on the right. You can do this by mousing over the recipe on the right and then clicking the trash can icon. Similarly, you can select the recipe on the right, then click the menu button in the 3D recipe viewer, then click Delete Recipe node. Another common use case is expanding the Spring Boot 3 migration. It's common for companies to have their own internal libraries that have to be updated to be usable with Spring Boot 3. And then click Add to Builder. Because I don't want to affect my existing common static analysis recipe, I'm going to click Add to New Recipe. Now we have Spring Boot 3 in here. I'm going to go ahead and click the menu button on the root recipe in the 3D recipe viewer and click Add Recipe to this recipe node. Let's add Upgrade, Gradle, or Maven dependency version. Select Recipe. Now let's say that we use Netflix's DGS framework to serve GraphQL from our Spring Boot application. We'll have to update to the latest to use it with Spring Boot 3. So let's say com.netflix.dgs framework star artifact star and version latest dot release. You can also specify a specific version if needed. Once you've got your recipe how you want it, you can test it on your repositories and review the proposed modifications to ensure everything works as intended by clicking Dry Run. To save or share your custom recipe, click the Recipe button at the top right and select Download YAML or Copy as YAML to Clipboard to convert the recipe into a YAML file that can be shared. Similarly, if you want to import a recipe, you can do so by selecting Import from YAML and pasting your YAML into the editor.